15 minutes. That is the narrow window on the 28th of February, 2026, that continues to raise serious questions inside Washington. At precisely 9:32 p.m. Eastern Time, roughly $500 million in crude oil futures contracts moved in a single, highly concentrated burst of trading activity. 15 minutes later, at 9:47 p.m., President Trump stepped forward and announced the launch of Operation Epic Fury, the beginning of direct U.S. military action against Iran. Only after the announcement did the broader markets react in the expected way, with oil prices climbing and defense sector stocks surging. But the data is clear. The largest and most precise move happened before any member of the public had heard the words, Operation Epic Fury. Congressman Ted Lieu had spent weeks examining those trading records. On the 10th of April, 2026, he walked into a House oversight hearing armed with public financial data and official correspondence. Lieu, a former federal prosecutor and Air Force JAG officer with a reputation for precise, unrelenting questioning, sat directly across from Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. He carried two key documents. One contained detailed trading timelines. The other was a formal letter he and Senator Mark Warner had sent to the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Department of Defense Inspector General. What unfolded in that room was not raised voices or partisan shouting. It was a methodical presentation of facts that left one direct question hanging in the air. The core problem is straightforward yet deeply troubling. In matters of war and peace, advanced knowledge is power. Markets move on, information. When that information is restricted to a small circle inside government, any unusually timed large trades demand examination. $500 million did not appear by random coincidence in that exact 15-minute window. Someone, or some group, acted with remarkable foresight. The only individuals with confirmed access to that information were inside the national security decision-making process. That reality is what brought Ted Lieu into the hearing room that morning. Lieu opened with a calm, measured tone. Mr. Secretary, I want to direct your attention to trading activity on February 28th, specifically the window between 9:32 and 9:47 p.m. Eastern Time. Are you aware of approximately $500 million in crude oil futures that were placed in that 15-minute period immediately before the announcement of Operation Epic Fury? Hegseth reached for his glass of water, set it back down without drinking, and replied, Congressman, I'm not aware of specific market activity on that date. Lieu did not shift topics. He remained focused. He opened the first document and placed it clearly on the table. Weeks earlier, the Financial Times had published reporting, backed by 3 sources with direct knowledge of internal communications, that Pete Hegseth's broker at Morgan Stanley had contacted BlackRock in February regarding a multi-million-dollar potential investment in the iShares Defense Industrials Active ETF. That fund holds significant positions in Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, RTX, and other major defense contractors. These are companies whose valuations rise sharply when major military operations are launched. Mr. Secretary, Lieu continued, his voice steady and controlled, your broker contacted BlackRock about that specific defense-heavy ETF in the weeks leading up to the start of Operation Epic Fury. Can you confirm or deny that this contact was made? Hegseth answered promptly, Congressman, I have no involvement in any trading activity, and that report has been categorically denied by the Pentagon as false and fabricated. At that moment, the room felt the shift. Lieu leaned forward slightly. Mr. Secretary, I did not ask whether you personally traded. I asked a narrower, specific question. Did your broker make contact with BlackRock about this defense fund? Those are 2 different questions. 4 full seconds of silence followed. Hegseth's hand rested on the edge of the table. His legal counsel glanced downward. The court reporter's fingers paused. Cameras continued rolling. Lieu waited without filling the space. The silence itself became part of the record. A prepared denial about personal involvement had not addressed the broker outreach detailed in public reporting. That distinction mattered. If you are finding this breakdown valuable and want to stay updated on every new development in this case, hit the subscribe button right now and turn on notifications. We will track every filing, every response, and every hearing as this moves forward. Lieu then moved to his second document. I have before me the letter Senator Mark Warner and I sent on April 3rd to both the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Defense Department Inspector General. The Financial Times has stood firmly by its reporting. The three sources with direct knowledge have not recanted. We are formally requesting a full investigation into whether material, non-public government information was used or attempted to be used for financial transactions connected to the Iran conflict. He positioned the letter so the cameras could capture it clearly. But Lieu was not finished. He introduced another documented fact. In late March, the White House issued an internal communication warning staff against placing bets on prediction markets related to the Iran conflict. Lieu read the existence of that warning into the record. If there was no insider activity of any kind, why was this specific warning necessary? What had already occurred that prompted the need to send it? Hegseth looked toward his counsel. No immediate, detailed response followed. The questions continued to build. The oil futures timing, the broker contact with a defense ETF positioned to benefit from conflict. The internal White House warning issued after the fact. Each element, standing alone, might invite questions. Together, they formed a pattern that regulators have a duty to examine thoroughly. Consider the mechanics. Crude oil futures are among the most liquid and closely watched markets in the world. A $500 million position in 15 minutes is not typical retail activity. It suggests institutional scale execution with precise timing. Defense ETFs, meanwhile, are designed to capture gains when Pentagon spending and operations increase. The reported broker outreach occurred in February, before the public escalation. The Financial Times has not retracted a single word of its account. The Pentagon's denial has not caused the underlying sources to disappear. This sequence placed increasing pressure on the witness. Lieu's approach was not theatrical. He relied on timelines, documents, and direct yes or no territory. Each unanswered or partially answered question made the next one heavier. The hearing exposed gaps between broad denials and specific documented actions. A categorical statement that a report is fabricated carries weight when made under oath in a congressional setting. If later evidence shows otherwise, the consequences extend beyond politics. By the end of the hearing, the exchange had spread rapidly across platforms. Legal analysts and former SEC enforcement officials described the 15-minute trading window as one of the more striking pre-announcement patterns they had reviewed in a national security context. Additional lawmakers added their support to the formal request for review. The SEC and Inspector General now hold active referrals. The April 29th public testimony by Secretary Hegseth before the House Armed Services Committee will likely revisit these exact financial questions, this time with even more attention on the public record. The broader stakes go beyond one hearing. Decisions about military action carry enormous financial implications. The American public expects that those with access to the most sensitive information will not allow that information to influence personal or associated financial positioning. Ethics rules, blind trust requirements, and public disclosure exist for precisely this reason. When large trades precede major announcements by minutes, and when broker contacts with strategically positioned funds are reported, independent review is the minimum required response. If these questions about timing, accountability, and potential conflicts matter to you, subscribe to the channel and join thousands of others following this story closely. We go deeper than headlines and stay with the facts as they develop. Ted Lieu placed the documents on the table and allowed the record to speak. He did not need dramatic rhetoric. The numbers, the timelines, and the gaps in the answers carried the weight. The Financial Times stands by every detail. Three sources have not changed their accounts. The $500 million move in that 15-minute window has not been explained away. And the direct question about the broker's contact with BlackRock remains without a clear, specific answer on the record. What does this mean for public trust? When markets move before the public is informed of war, the explanations must be complete and transparent. Partial answers and broad denials are not enough. Full cooperation with SEC and Inspector General reviews is the standard the public should demand, regardless of administration or party. One final point before we close. The record from April 10th is now permanent. The letters are filed, the trading data sits with regulators. As new information emerges from the ongoing reviews, this channel will bring it to you without delay. If you believe these financial questions around national security decisions deserve rigorous, independent investigation, leave a comment below with your thoughts. Tell us whether you think the current reviews are sufficient or whether Congress should take additional steps. And if this kind of detailed, fact-based breakdown is what you want more of, subscribe now and become part of the conversation that holds power to account. We will be here for the April 29th hearing, any SEC updates, and every development that follows. 15 minutes, $500 million. Documents placed on the table in a congressional hearing. One question about a broker contact that still awaits a direct answer. The investigation is underway. The public record is growing, and the American people deserve the full truth.